On February 28, 1985, a car is burning in a forest near Paris. We are in the forest of Meudon, and there's a Citroën deux chevaux in flame. It's engulfed. A young man is jumping around outside, save her, save her. And when people stop to help, he says, my wife, she is burning. It turns out that this is 22-year-old Bruno Joushomme, and the lady inside of the car is his 61-year-old wife. Is this a terrible, terrible accident? Or was it, in fact, murder? Hey, thank you for joining me. This is In Search of Lost Crime, a whimsical, historical, true crime podcast, or in this case, a video. And today we are off to Paris, or a little bit below Paris, Meudon. On February 28th, Bruno Joushomme and his wife, they've been married for less than 3 months, Evelyne Laborde, are having lunch with his parents in Meudon. Bruno is from Meudon. It's a little bit tense. They got married 3 months ago, and Bruno's parents are not that excited about the union. Evelyn is almost 40 years older, and Bruno is a bit of a problem child. Bruno has a brother, Patrick, who is the golden boy. He's a doctor, he's a student, and Bruno is none of these things, really. After lunch, which was a bit tense, they borrow Bruno's parents' car. Evelyn lives in Paris, she doesn't have a car. So they borrow a very, very old yellow duck, as we call it in the Netherlands. It's a Citroën deux chevaux. It's a classic car. It's beautiful. It's also not the strongest car. They drive away from Meudon, and suddenly the car crashes into a tree. It veers off the road and it crashes smack into a tree. The car bursts into flame, and Bruno only barely manages to jump out. But when he turns around, the door has magically closed. He tries to open it. It will not budge. And he has to watch helplessly as his wife burns to, well, a crisp, basically. Initially, everyone just feels very, very sorry for Bruno. This is a horrible thing to happen. And then people start thinking, because they'd only been married for 3 months, and Evelyn never drove. She had a license, but she never drove a car, so that she would choose today, of all days, after 30 years of not driving, to drive in Bruno's parents' old crappy car. It makes no real sense. And then immediately she goes off full throttle and hits a tree. Very bizarre. The ones who are most confounded by this accident and very suspicious are Evelyn's brothers and sisters. They do not believe that this is how it happened at all. And as they start to dig, they find all kinds of stuff that just feels so wrong. As I prepared for this episode, I watched Au bout de l'enquête, l'affaire Bruno Joushomme. Everything sounds better in French, let's face it. This documentary, it's a whole true crime series of documentaries, and they somehow get Bruno, present day Bruno, to talk about what happened that night. And Bruno explains how they had lunch at his parents' house. They went for a drive. It was a straight road. There was nothing going on, no traffic, nothing. And suddenly, bam. And they were on their way to go and look at a car for them to buy, because they had a wonderful plan. Bruno and Evelyn were going to start an orphanage for Ethiopian children. And they needed a car for that. A rather large one, I suppose, because they were looking to adopt no fewer than 12 Ethiopian orphans. In this documentary, they go back to the scene of the accident, the scene of the crime, and you see the oak tree, the yellow deux chevaux crashed into an oak tree, and the oak tree is still there. It looks fine. Nothing wrong with the oak tree. They reenact what happened. You see Bruno or someone jumping out of the car and then turning around to try and rescue his wife, but the door has shut and he cannot open it. The police think, oh, well, that's a horrible thing to happen. We are so sorry. Case closed. It was an accident. But Eveline's family does not take this lying down, especially not after the will is read. It turns out that 1 week before this accident, Eveline changed her will, leaving everything to, I'll give you 3 guesses. Take your time, 3 guesses. Yeah? Bruno. Everyone agrees that Eveline was rich. She was 61 years old and she liked to eat and drink and she was very generous. She was rich and very generous. She liked to hang out with her mates and she owned this incredible house on the coast in France, in Bretagne, and it's beautiful. It is the Fortelin, and you can rent it actually. It's for rent these days. So I of course had a sneak peek inside. It's beautiful. It's not cheap, but it's absolutely stunning. And I found people on Facebook who'd actually taken a walk there just to see where l'affaire Bruno Joushomme happened. This is a case that really stuck in people's mind, perhaps also because of the very bright deux chevaux that was engulfed in flames. It's one of those things that sticks with you. She has this beautiful house and she hangs out with her mates. One day she decides to invite an old friend, a cousin of hers who's also a good friend. This cousin, same age as Eveline, 60. And she says, I would love to come, Eveline, but my son, he's going through a rough time. Is it okay if I bring him? Sure, says Eveline. Bring Bruno. Yes. Bruno Joushomme. So his mom brings Bruno and all this. Bruno Joushomme was born on the 15th of May, 1962. He grew up in a really nice family. They were not rich. There's this hint of they were very prim and proper. They had everything they needed, but Eveline's family was rich. So there is a little bit of snobbery going on there as well. He grew up, he has an older brother, Patrick, the golden boy who became a doctor. And when Bruno goes off to university, he just doesn't click. He always thought, I think, if you see him talking, you know he's an arrogant little twerp. And he was even worse, I think, when he was 22. And he thought that everyone would fawn over him. And I think he was slightly disappointed. He's not all bad. He goes off, he wants to save the world. So he goes to the war in Lebanon as a volunteer. Yeah, that's a lot more than he bargained for. So after a very short time, he returns and he's completely traumatized. Which is when his mom, who's a little bit concerned about him, says, you know what, I'm off to your Auntie Eveline's. Do you want to come? Sure. And Eveline and Bruno, they get on like a house on fire. Pardon the pun. They really hit it off. And Eveline was always into young guys. This is where the story takes a little bit of a funny turn because Eveline had a very young boyfriend before. When all this hits the fan, a French newspaper, Libération, digs up this former boyfriend of Eveline's, Jean, no last name. And Jean was only 16 when he hooked up, or she hooked up with him, I don't know, with Eveline, who was 40 back then. Yeah, I think 16 is very, very young. However, they stayed together for 13 years and they were just about to get married when Jean fell in love with another and broke up with Eveline. I still think it's creepy. When asked to describe his late wife, Bruno goes with the hands. He's very French, and he says, "Oh, Eveline had such joie de vivre." He really says joie de vivre. I didn't know French people actually said that. She had such joie de vivre. She was her own country. She was her own continent. She was toute Eveline. She was all of her was Eveline. And this should have been a very sweet, heartwarming thing. It's just a little bit creepy. And you think you never had real feelings for her, did you? You were in it for the money. I can just tell you, but yes. It just makes him look guilty, to be honest. Eveline had a bonne, a companion, as you would call it in Regency novels, really. I didn't know people had that. I'm not sure that it's because she's so rich that she gets to have a companion. It is part servant, part friend, confides in Anna. And she says, "You know what? I'm enjoying my time with Bruno. But here's the weird thing. He really wants to get married. And not just, at some point in the future. He wants to get married now. Basically, tomorrow." And when they announce to family and friends that they are getting married, the shit hits the fan. I mean, everyone's like, "What are you doing?" And Anna says, "I was a little bit surprised by this as well, because it's not like Eveline and Bruno are having relations. They do not even live together, because Bruno lives with his girlfriend, his maîtresse, as he calls it, Sophie. And I think they even live in one of Eveline's apartments. Eveline has an inheritance. She has a property portfolio. She has no fewer than 5, count them, 5 really fancy apartments in Paris and that gorgeous house in Bretagne. She has all these beautiful apartments, but they don't live together. So Anna is also like, what gives? You're not going to get properly married. So what is this about? And of course, Eveline's family, her brothers and sisters say, you must be out of your mind to want to marry this guy. You know he's only after your money, right? And I think that maybe that put Eveline's back up, because she doesn't have any kids. So if she dies, her money will either go to Bruno, who she's going to marry, or to her family. And she feels that the family is mostly concerned about where her money's going. Thinks something niggles in the back of her mind. So she gets Bruno to sign a prenup. He will get nothing if she dies, and definitely nothing if they get divorced. And on December 7th, 1984, they get married. It is not a very joyous occasion. There's only 4 people there. There's Bruno with his brother Patrick, the golden boy, the doctor. And then there's Eveline and Anna, the companion, the paid companion. Later on in a statement, a policeman will say, they did not even have rings. They didn't have any kind of ring. They have to borrow rings to get married. All because of this indecent haste to get married. So there's no party. There are barely any people. And the wedding breakfast is a pizza at the place around the corner. And after all that, Bruno goes home to his maîtresse, Sophie, and Eveline goes home with Anna. Anna Wolt. It's not really the wedding of the century, is it? Eveline's family does not like this one bit, but they are very happy about the prenup. If Bruno divorces Eveline, or the other way around, he will walk away with nothing. That is until a week before the accident, because somehow Bruno manages to convince Eveline to put him in her will. If she is to die, everything goes to Bruno. So divorce, he gets nothing. But if she dies, all those lovely apartments go to Bruno. So when Eveline actually dies, a week after signing this. And in the documentary, the policeman says, as she signs this, she's basically signing her own death warrant. And he's not completely wrong. Bruno ends up inheriting 4 million francs. 4 million francs in 1985, all in real estate. So there's money as well, but there's at least 4 million in real estate. Now, if you take 4 million francs and you put it in today's money, it is about £1,000,000. But if you look at the real estate, if they'd kept the real estate, I looked at these apartments. There's an apartment in Avenue du Bel Air in Paris. You can only buy a shoebox there and it's 180,000 euros. A decent apartment, and Evelien had 5 luxury apartments, is at least 500,000, probably more, because the prices in Paris have skyrocketed. I think we are talking 4 million euros in this case, not 4 million francs. So this is an amazing amount of money. And all of it goes to Bruno. Evelien's family is livid. They are really, really angry that all this money is going to this interloper, this guy who's barely been married to their sister. And they're also highly suspicious. And I must say, that I get. And one of Evelien's brothers, Lucien, he shouts at Bruno and he says, Evelien hated children. What is this story about orphans? Because Bruno says, well, we had to change our will, so she would get what I have and I got what she had if either of us died, because of the orphans. Because if we had the orphanage, of course, the future of the orphanage needed to be solid. And Lucien just goes ballistic and says, she hated children. Why the hell was she starting an orphanage? I don't believe you. You are a liar. And I find it rather refreshing, not the last bit, but she hated children. She was very open about this. She did not like children. She liked young boys, but she did not like children. And usually in these true crime things, everyone is how, oh, she lit up her room. She was so wonderful. Everyone loved her. I don't think so. I think Evelien was a very fun person, I think, but she also had to have things her way, and she hated children. Good on you. Evelien's family does not take this lying down. They decide to investigate. Evelien's brother, Lucien Laborde, has he's an influential guy, and he has some mates on the police force. So he gets them to go back to the scene of the crime or the accident. And one of the people he asks is Robert Blin, and he's also in the documentary. And we see Robert Blin going back to this oak tree where the car crashed. And one of the things he notices back in 1985, it doesn't seem like anyone tried to brake. There's no rubber on the road. It just seems like the car went bam into the tree. Why would she not brake for the tree? Why wasn't she touching the brakes? Really bizarre. And then they go and have a look at the car, which has burned out completely. But when they look at it, it's not really dented in the front, so it doesn't look like it smashed into anything at any kind of speed. And if it didn't go at any kind of speed, then why did it spontaneously combust? It's all very, very suspicious. They take their findings to the police, who decide, okay, I think we have enough to open a proper investigation. Proper investigation is opened, and they start off with an autopsy. And there they find something really disturbing. Evelien's larynx has been shattered, fractured, and that would imply that quite possibly she'd been strangled before she was burned. This is actually what happened. Bruno strangles Evelien for her money, then drives the car into that tree, gets out, and sets it on fire. It makes a lot more sense than spontaneous combustion. And now we have a whole list of weird things. Why was Evelien driving? She never drove. Why does it not seem like she tried to brake? Well, maybe because she was already dead. Why was Bruno so insistent on getting married if he didn't even want to live with her? Well, he was after her money. And how did the spontaneous combustion happen? Well, it had a little bit of help. Bruno is arrested. And in the documentary, he says, it was 6 in the morning when they came. And I was, asleep with my maîtresse, Sophie. And he seems really put out by the fact that the police come and arrest him so early in the morning. Couldn't they have come at 10 when he'd had his coffee and his croissant? They arrest him, they put him behind bars, and then it kind of fizzles because there is a new autopsy. And in the new autopsy, they cannot really tell whether there was a break in the larynx or maybe that happened after the autopsy, or they're not sure. And if they throw it out, and they have to let Bruno go. Bruno, of course, is elated. He gets all the money and he gets to be on his merry way. He goes back to university and he studies philosophy. He meets a very charming young girl called Marie-Claude. They fall in love, they get married, and they have a son. In the meantime, Eveline's family keeps trying to get the police to take another look at the case, and they do. In 1991, they take another stab at it, and they exhume Eveline and go for another autopsy. But this is where it gets a little bit nasty. The previous autopsy has been done a little bit shabbily, and some of Eveline's body parts are missing. So that's not going to work. The car. Let's check the car again. The car has been scrapped in 1987, so it does look as if they've hit a wall. They will never be able to prove whether it was an accident or murder. Or will they? In 1995, the police decide, you know what, we're going to give it another go. They get Bruno to come and do a walkthrough of what happened that night. They get another deux chevaux, not a yellow one, a gray one, and they do all the things that Bruno said happened. So they roll down the hill. You see Bruno jumping out of the car, and then he has to explain. So what happened? Why did you close the door? Because Bruno, in his testimony, says he jumped out, closed the door, and then it automatically locked. They try and do this. It doesn't happen. The door does not automatically lock. And they wonder, why would you close the door? Your wife is in there. The car is on fire. Yes, says Bruno. I guess it was just one of those instinctive things. According to Bruno, he then ran around the car. In his story, he is the passenger and Eveline is driving. He ran around the car and tried to open that door. But, oh no, Eveline, in the meantime, had scooted down to the passenger seat. So when he opened the driver's side door, suddenly the flames leapt up and she burned where she sat. It is a very unlikely story. Let's just call a spade a spade. That's a weird story. We get testimony, very damning testimony from Marie-Claude. Yes, the girl that Bruno married. And she now insists that he made a full confession of killing Eveline. They have enough. They take this to court. In 1995, 12 years after the accident, Bruno has to face a judge. And the worst thing for him, of course, is Marie-Claude, his very own wife, saying, yeah, he confessed to me. He said he did it. He was in it for the money. Side note, but Bruno and Marie-Claude are at this point going through a very bitter custody battle. Marie-Claude has every reason to want him behind bars for, the rest of his life, because then she gets custody of their son. It really helps. But there's also another very damning testimony. Patrick, Bruno's brother, the doctor, He said that as soon as he heard about this weird accident, he thought maybe Bruno had something to do with it. Even worse, when he goes on to say that when I told my mom, she said, "Oh, do you think I think Bruno had something to do with it?" Both the people who know him best, his mother and his brother, think, Bruno, I bet he did this. There's no hope for him. They put up a defense, but no. The jury takes less than 2 hours to decide, yep, he done it. He done kill her. So Bruno goes to prison for life. That is even more than the prosecutor had asked for. This jury hates Bruno Joushomme. Bruno is put in prison in Poissy. And he keeps saying, no, I had nothing to do with it. I don't know what you're talking about. I had nothing to do with it. And he keeps trying to file new appeals and nothing works. And he's kind of forgotten, which really bothers him. After 20 years, he asked to be released. And they say, no, we're not doing that. Because in order to be released before your sentence is done, you have to admit to doing it, and he refuses to do that, say you're sorry, and say that you'll never do it again. Well, all these things Bruno is not going to do. Finally, after 22 years, they let him out, conditionally. And Bruno, ever since then, has been trying to prove his innocence. And part of that is documentaries like this. And I must say, they do more harm than good, because I don't think there's anyone, I was going to say not even his mother would believe, but yeah, his mother already thought he was a murderer. No one, after watching what I watched, would say, oh no, I think he's so innocent. No. But I'm curious to hear what you think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he didn't do it. I think he did it. Thank you for watching this. Hit that like button. And until next time, try not to end up in a podcast.